So we act like we're confused when we start these because I should know how to start them by now, considering I believe we're on episode 14 of the Not an Accident podcast, but I can't act too confused around you, Cabry, because you know exactly where we are because you're one of the co-founders of Modern Media Group. So welcome.
I do indeed. Thanks for having me on, Kev. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. I can't thank you enough. I mean, I know it was a lot for you to come to your own studio to film an episode about you and your company, but no, all jokes aside, and just to give the audience some kind of, I guess, history of our relationship. I was working with you guys when I think you were fresh out of UT, and I was starting to film content. I was getting away like we all do from the cell phone days, and I would have you guys come through, and I'm like, listen, we're gonna I need 2 hours or an hour. I think we got down to at some point. We're gonna rip through these videos. We'll shoot a quarter's worth of content, and we'll keep doing it. And then years later, we talked about doing a podcast, and I was like, I really want to do one. And then you guys did the studio, and I came over to my new firm, and I'm like, I got to do it. And here we are.
Absolutely. So. No, I love it. And it's crazy because you were one of, obviously, our first clients, and you were one of the first people also that we batched a lot of content in one day, which is like one of our main things now. So it's crazy how the world works, and you were catching on to this stuff early, so it's cool to see.
And this was probably like 21, 22 when shorts were really starting to become a thing. And I was doing a little bit of long form content, but it's just, it was this is great now because the long form, obviously, you guys are helping me out with the editing, and we can do, social clips and things like that, smaller content. But I didn't have time to prepare a proper, 20, 30, even 10-minute video. People don't understand how much prep goes into that.
Absolutely. And I think obviously you working with us now for so long, like you see the back end of everything. So many people don't realize like when you see your favorite influencer or business person or whatever it is, and you see them post all this content, so much prep that goes into it, like preparing the hook to a video, the script, making sure people are engaged throughout the whole video. So yeah, a lot of people have no idea, so it's cool. I'm sure you now appreciate the back end of it, and especially podcasting is even different than just short form video. So
absolutely,
interesting.
Podcasting, it's just, I have to have questions, and I have to research the guest, and every time with one of these podcasts, I actually have like a mission or something that I'm trying to accomplish based on that, individuals. Specialties. So, I had, somebody the last 2 episodes ago that was starting an oil company. And then, so we talked about that business, and then we, had a couple people involved in the exotic car business. So there's a lot of synergies and a lot of similarities, but a lot of differences as well. And when you want to really extract that value, you got to do your homework. So
yeah, absolutely.
Tell me about what Modern Media Group is. How did it start, and what do you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually have 2 separate companies. So right now we have Modern Media Group, which is our agency, and then we have MMG Studios, which is this space, and also the studio. So I can kind of give a breakdown of both on, I guess, how they started. So on the Modern Media Group side of things, my business partner, Lindsay, and I, we met in college at the University of Tampa. We were both in the accelerator program. Are you familiar with the accelerator?
Is that like the 3+1 or whatever?
No, it's not. So that's like the master's program. Okay. I think Victoria, our producer who's sitting right there, is in that right now. But it's like an incubator, similar to a club almost.
Okay.
But it's almost like an interview process, and you go through like a little tryout. And then when we were in it, there's probably like 7 to 15 businesses that get into it. And my business partner, Lindsay, and I were both in it, kind of doing our own things. And then we had a professor, like the guy that kind of ran the program. He was like, you guys should meet each other. You're doing really cool stuff. And at the time, Lindsay had like 8 clients on retainer. She had like a big restaurant group, and like she was killing it. And I was kind of like doing more freelance stuff. I was running ads. At the time, I actually played lacrosse at UT. So
nice.
Time-wise, I had like negative time. I was kind of going to class and then also going to lacrosse pretty much full time. And then I was just learning stuff on the side. So my goal was after lacrosse and after I graduated, I wanted to start an agency or some sort of business. But I really enjoyed like the game of business and the business development, building systems and processes in that aspect. And then when I met Lindsay, she was the one who's super detail oriented, great at getting the work done, amazing at like managing clients. So when her and I met, we kind of hit it off, and then after like probably 2 or 3 months of just like working together and like collabing ideas, we were like, we should probably partner just because we were so opposite. And I feel like a lot of people in business too tend to, especially early on in college, it's like you want to start a business with your best friend or whatever. But at the time we kind of realized, and I realized just after like studying and taking courses and stuff, I'm like, this could actually work out pretty good because we were so opposite.
I want to touch on that real quick. Yeah, it's about you guys being opposites. That's, when you're starting a business, and I want to highlight this, when you're starting a business, you said, most people start businesses with their best friends and things, and sometimes that works out. But really, when you're starting a business or bringing on a partner or employees or any part of that business, if you're not finding somebody that can complement your weaknesses or take over that, if you're hiring another you, especially in the beginning stages, you don't need another you. You need somebody that's going to complement you and bring those different strengths that you don't have. So I think that's wonderful, and I wanted to identify that for the audience when, they're growing their businesses and things like that. Don't be just looking for somebody to do the same things you're doing.
Yeah, 100%. And even I think as your company grows and scales, it's like you need to find either the partners, employees, or people that are kind of, they have skill sets that you don't have in a sense. And even now, like if Victoria gave me one of these cameras to run, like I'm not good at it. I barely know how to run it. But as we've grown, it's like we've found people and built out trainings and different aspects of our business with all the skill sets that we lack. Even like Lindsay taught herself photography, but like our main services now are all video based. And neither of us are videos. We can't edit videos. So a lot of people think that we're creatives and that's how we've grown in this, but it's really because we've had two different skill sets. Lindsay is amazing at managing like the day-to-day of everything. And she's like so detail oriented where I'm like very big picture. How are we going to grow this thing long-term? So yeah, I fully agree. Most people.
And you need those. You need both those things. And again, to highlight that, when you start a business, you don't have to know everything. I feel like that's just like, and that's almost like an entrepreneurial curse where people think that it's like, I have to do every part of the business. You don't have to be the accountant. You don't have to be the, CEO. Well, you do have to be the CEO. You got to pick a lane, but you don't need to be the accountant. You don't need to be the VP of sales. You don't need to be, doing all these different roles and wearing all these hats. Maybe in the beginning you do, obviously, to save funds and build out infrastructure. But once you start getting that momentum, it's smart to go through and identify weaknesses and then be able to hire accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to, I guess, our starting story, once we decided to partner with Modern Media Group, and Lindsay actually already had the name Modern Media Group. Okay. So her agency was Modern Media Group, but it was just...
Was this 2020?
This is, 2020. I want to say that she came up with the name in like 2019 or
so
like
COVID
early
business.
20.
Nice.
Yeah, but she was like absolutely killing it. And it was just her. She was just freelancing, had a few clients, and she was like, I don't need a job if I'm going to keep doing this. And then once we decided to partner, I was pretty much pitching her on the idea. I'm like, we could have salespeople and like, you don't have to do all the work. Like we can hire a social media manager and like we can hire videographers and photographers that are really good at what they do and like build out. You can have a margin so you can still make money after you hire someone. You can charge more. Yeah. So that was like my initial pitch, I guess, to her. But it wasn't like I was pitching her. It was like we were just collaborating over 2 months. And I was like, did you think about doing this? She's like, oh, no. Because she never really took any courses or business books. She was just like doing the thing. And then I was more like thinking about doing the thing. And then it ended up obviously working out pretty well. And then the first couple people we hired, our first person we brought on was like a part-time videographer. His name was Christian. And then we pretty much upsold all of her current clients and then a few other clients that we got on video services. So it was all short form video because that's when like TikTok and Instagram Reels became a thing. So we started selling video services. Video started killing it. And also when Lindsay and I first started, we were offering every service. So like if someone approached us for like graphic design or a website or like you want us to walk your dog, like we'll take it. So that's how we started. And
we'll
then
send you a video too.
Yeah, exactly. And then as video became popular and once we started offering that, we noticed we were getting a lot of traction on it. So then we pretty much cut out like all services other than organic social media management, short form video, photo, and video production. And video production, I would say more came after we kind of like built the portfolio. We started doing some like higher level commercial grade projects, that sort of thing. But really short form video was like our bread and butter. And then we started like building out.
How hard was that process? Go back real quick. How hard was that process? Because that's not easy, especially for young entrepreneurs, to cut out that menu list. Because it's like, well, if we make $100 here and $100 there, I'm obviously throwing out $100 in example terms, but it's like, and then we make $200 here, and it's like, no. Why don't we just make $1,000 here? over and over and over and over again, and we'd be the video guys. And that focus is so hard because everybody's like, oh, well, we can just do, especially coming from the legal profession, you see a lot of people, it's like, I do criminal law, I do personal injury, I'll do contracts, I'll write your will. And it's like, dude, like, what do you do other than everything?
And it makes everything more complicated too, because
course.
if you are targeting so many different audiences and markets and you have different services, I mean, one, from a systems perspective, you need to build out individual systems for each of those things. And then on top of that, all the marketing material you're doing, now you need to be able to talk to those different types of customers and those things. So like, one, I think it complicates everything, especially in the early days when you don't even have any systems built out. So I think it's better to start smaller and then add on services or different things. And that's what we've kind of done and learned, I guess. But to answer your question, we were almost like forced to do it in a sense. One, I think all of the majority of the work that we were selling and what we were still focusing on was social media management and content creation. And then really short form video became like the biggest aspect of content creation. But at the time we had Christian, who was our first videographer. He ended up moving, and then we brought on Gunther, who you know.
Of course.
And then Gunther was an amazing videographer, editor. He was essentially like our creative director in a sense. So he was managing and shooting all of the videos. So he was like the point of contact for all of our video clients. And Lindsay was pretty much social media. So like Lindsay was handling social media stuff. Gunther would handle content stuff. And then I was all sales, business development. We realized very quickly that he could only take on so much work. And that's when we kind of were forced to like build out different systems. And we were like outsourcing different people. Like if we got a graphic design project or a website or different things, we had other partners and part-time people that we would like bring on, but it was like less consistent. And then when we made the decision to kind of switch fully to content, social media, and video production, it was mainly because like we were getting so much work from it. So like, which was a good thing. But at the same time, we couldn't build out the systems for the other aspects of the business. And also going back to my original point was like with marketing too, it was like, we can't be saying we're going to offer all these different services, especially with most agencies that are offering every single service are large agencies. If they're doing all those things well.
Oh, there's departments and VPs and directors.
Exactly.
And yeah, of course.
And it's like, that's not what we want to compete with. And then also just from a business model perspective, we want clients on retainer so we can build the business, hire full-time employees and actually have like a true foundation of the business rather than just taking like one-off projects. And then as we started to grow, what we did from like a system perspective was kind of switch how we do everything. So like I would say over like this is probably after the first year, me and Lindsay were working together. We decided to kind of like separate the roles. So instead of having one person who at the time was Gunther, who was kind of like shooting, editing, talking to the clients, brainstorming ideas, we switched it into like 3 roles. So we have content managers who are pretty much point of contact for everything related to content. So they're the ones brainstorming the ideas, just managing the whole production process. So they're coming up with the ideas, meeting with clients, writing down a shot list, the trending sounds that are going into a video, actually directing the shoot itself. And then they are managing the editing team after we get the content back from the videographers. So it's really 3 roles. You have the content managers, videographers or photographers, and now also UGC creators. And then you have our editing team. So that way, when we are able to like separate the roles, now it's an extremely scalable model because we know each content manager can handle roughly 8 to 13 clients. They are all full-time employees. So that also gives us a better foundation if we ever wanted to sell the company. Or just as we build it out, if we want to open in another location or something, we have our whole editing team where if we go shoot something in Miami tomorrow, it's like we don't need to find a videographer and editor in Miami and this perfect person who can also like talk to the client. We can have like our content managers manage the project. And really the only aspect that we need is like the creative. So videographers, but we work with probably 15 to 20 videographers every single month now, or creators, I guess, in general. So now it's a very scalable model. And once we decided to pivot to that, it really prohibited us from like being limited on how many clients we could take on and everything. So that it was almost like a forced change in a sense.
Why do you think, building on that, and obviously with the growth of your company, why do you think content is so important in 2024 or just today?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the number one way to get attention in a sense. It's like your digital portfolio. And
oftentimes the cheapest.
Yeah, 100%. And on Modern Media Group side of things, we work with a lot of like hospitality, restaurants, hotels, things like that. And a lot of the clients we talk to, some of them are packed. Like a few of our clients like Roca, Naked Farmer, a lot of businesses that like, they don't necessarily need the attention. Like Roca is like booked out almost every day. It's impossible to get a reservation, but at the same time, the value in it is one, you want to keep the brand reputation and everything, but at the same time, and this is for a business that already has demand, is they use Instagram to pick out what they want on the menu, and they're looking at that as a portfolio, even as a restaurant. And obviously you being a lawyer and different personal brands and business owners that we work with as well, it's like, I think it's the number one way to communicate value and also get a feel for like who someone is or who a business is. And like usually like our baseline strategy for Modern Media Group clients and also how we approach our own content as well, to make it like pretty simple, is like usually we're coming up with content pillars for a business. So those are pretty much the big categories of your business that make you unique in a sense, or things that you want to highlight. So like for our account, if you look at Modern Media Group's account, our 3 content pillars are value-based content. So we want to show off that we're experts in content creation and social media management. Second one is showing off our portfolio. So the businesses we're working with, we want to highlight cool companies, show that we make good stuff. And then the third one is showing off our team culture. So we're cool people. We're people you would want to work with. And then when someone hops on a discovery call with us, and whether they found us from social media, it was a referral or something, they look at our Instagram and it's like they have a very good feel of who we are, the services we offer, who they might be potentially working with, where I think if they were to approach a competitor or someone that maybe doesn't have a social media presence, like us, like 4 or 5 years ago when we were just starting and we didn't have much of a presence, it's like we were really having to pitch and like demonstrate our services and quality and everything verbally or on a call. And it's almost like we're hard pitching people, which like in the beginning, you almost have to do that. And you need to grind for those first couple of clients. But now when people come to us, like they're excited. They're like, I've seen your work. I know exactly who you are. I know Alicia or Victoria or the different people on your team. And they're like excited about it. And it's like most of the time now we're not really pitching people. Obviously it needs to be a good fit from like a pricing standpoint, what we offer, what they're looking for, whatever problems that they're having. But at the same time, it's a completely different conversation. So I think that is one of the main value adds of like social media and content in general, is like it's your best shot at showing off who you are and like really the value you provide as a business, or even if you have a personal brand. It's like, and there's a lot of different ways you can take it. Obviously you with the podcast as like even a networking tool, and it's fun to have conversations with cool people too. So it's like you can really tweak it also to your personality and different things. But yeah, I would say the number one aspect is just like showing people the value you can provide, and just makes everything easier.
I think, you said a lot of amazing things. I think the biggest thing that you hit on was just a personal brand. And that was the thing, and I can say, for example, for me, like, being an attorney, there's 1,000 billboards out there with, somebody in a suit and, call me and stuff like that. It really displays very little. Yeah, it's great for attention. You're going to see it repeatedly and stuff like that. But this new modern age, I think if you want to differentiate yourself and you really want to grow, it's showing who you are. And you'll see, with my content, it's, results from cases. It's me with my family. It's me at events and community events and supporting the community and car events and things like that. And that's been, amazing to be able to connect with people that obviously need legal services, but at the same time know me as a person. And I think that's where, a lot of people really miss the mark in content. Is it's not all about like putting out there, and I've had this conversation many times before. I think episode 1, I had this conversation. It's not putting out content that is going to attract the masses. It's putting out content that's going to attract the right people to do whatever you're trying to do, whether it's create a connection, create business relationships, whatever you're trying to do. You're not trying to please everyone. You're trying to please the people that you're trying to please.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I could not agree more.
So, and you guys have definitely, done that. It's, we're here to do, video content. It's not, we're not here to do, obviously we can help you, but, we're not here to do graphic design. We're not here to build your website or anything like that. This is what we're here to do. You could easily put out content for the masses and you would probably get a great return. But at the end of the day, that's not the audience that you're trying to necessarily attract today.
Absolutely. And like the people that we are targeting are either personal brands or people that own businesses in Tampa or kind of like surrounding areas. So, and also, in the beginning, I didn't give a breakdown also of MMG Studio Services, but to sum it up is Modern Media Group, it works with businesses. So most of the accounts and clients that we're working with are businesses themselves. So it's the business's account, whether that be a restaurant, car dealership, law firm, rather than on the studio side, we work with personal brands. So most of our clients on the studio side have businesses, but they're trying to highlight themselves and build their personal brand that ultimately is going to lead their business to more success. But it is on the personal branding side of things. I forgot. What was the question again?
I think we went down a rabbit hole, and we're just going to go to the next one because there was so much value. It was why is content so important in today's 2024, today's times. And I think you hit that out of the park. So building on top of that, okay, I'm not going to hold you to this, but I have to ask, all right? There's a lot of different social media platforms out there, and people get, they call it I think it's like the red dress, issue or whatever, where it's like you see the lady in the red dress or whatever, and you're like, and get distracted. So if there was one social media platform, if people were like, I'm getting in the social media game, I'm going to start creating content, what would your recommendation be for the platform that they should start with and focus the most time on?
Yeah, so I have a few different opinions on this. So I think it's difficult to give one specific. You can't make it easy.
You could have just picked one.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry.
I'm kidding. So yeah, please go ahead.
But yeah, so I think one really depends on the person or business that's starting it. So,
really? Okay.
And I think there's some easy answers. I think for the average person that wants to either start growing their personal brand or different things, I'd probably recommend TikTok because one, I think it's the easiest way to get as much exposure as possible.
Curveball. I would have thought Instagram. So TikTok, go ahead. Yeah.
And this will get to my second point, though. I think an audience on Instagram, I think, is way more valuable, but I think it's harder to grow in the short term. So ideally, obviously, you want to be posting on as many platforms as possible. But in the beginning, it's hard to do. And obviously, it's it's definitely a time commitment, but also it can be a monetary commitment as well if you're making high quality content consistently. I think TikTok is going to get you the most amount of exposure as quick as possible. And that's just what it has seemed like with a lot of our clients and a lot of people that I talk to just being in the space. But at the same time, I think Instagram is a higher quality audience and also depends on who you are as a person. So if you want to be more of say a business coach type person, influencer, if you're going to sell a course or something, which I know is obviously very popular nowadays, I would say probably TikTok, Instagram Reels would be your best bet. But at the same time, if you're a business, like if you're a restaurant, I would say you want to go for something more visually appealing where you're also more targeted. So like for us with Modern Media Group and MMG Studios, I think Instagram is way better of a play because one, our work is very visual. Same thing with like a restaurant, like people want to see the food that they're working with. And even if we have a video go viral on TikTok, it doesn't really matter that much. Obviously awesome, it's great exposure, but 95% of those people are not within the market that we're targeting.
I was going to say that. I feel like people on TikTok, they're watching to watch, whereas on like an Instagram or Facebook or a different medium, they're watching to engage.
Yes.
Like, where's this at?
Yes, 100%. So if you're a restaurant in Tampa and you have a video that maybe it gets, say, 20,000, 50,000 views, which is a lot of views, but compared to if you have, say, a video get 1 million views on TikTok or something, obviously most people would say like, 1 million views is way better, but those 10,000, 50,000 views that were on Instagram, most likely a majority of them are coming from that local area. And then also when you're clicking on an Instagram feed, it's very visual most of the time. So if you're a restaurant, you can click through, see what food you like. If you're a business like us, an agency, you can scroll through, see what clients we're working with, see what type of value we offer versus TikTok. I think people are actively scrolling. So to answer your question, I think it really depends on what your business is and what you're ultimately trying to accomplish. Where if you do have something that's more for the masses, say if you're a sales coach and you're putting out sales coaching content, but you can target really anyone around the world or at least in the US. If you have a video that goes and gets 1 million views, that is going to be very valuable for you. So I ultimately think it depends on the person themselves and the value that they're portraying. I also think like YouTube is a huge play as well. Like I think YouTube is almost like one of the most valuable audiences because if someone's especially
massive, yeah.
Yeah, and I would
the description that you can put in and everything that you can do with that, it's I wouldn't say it's the best bang for your buck, but if you can grow an audience on there, I mean, I see people with the Amazon referral links and all, the different referral links in general. I mean, yeah, if you can grow an audience on there, that's where the money's made, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's when you think about it, same thing I think with long form podcasting as well. Even if you have a smaller audience on a platform like that, where it's long form based, it's people that are watching you for say 30 minutes to 3 hours long. And that audience is way more valuable than just someone who might like your video just because they're scrolling through and they liked it and it was engaging quick. So, and I think that's also a huge play where you can use short form content to get people to that long form content where you might be posting a clip of this podcast that's on short form. It's going to get you exposure, potentially us exposure, but ultimately maybe it will drive them to the long form podcast and they'll listen to this whole thing. And then they'll say, oh, Kevin's a really cool dude. Maybe I want to work with him after listening to the long form. And I think the long form is a lot better of an opportunity. If you can get people there to really like build value and like a valuable audience in a sense. But you need the short form to get people there because like most people aren't just going to find
you need that intro. You need that elevator pitch. I mean, that's what it is at the end of the day. Tell me about, we've thrown around a lot of, and I'm sure a lot of the audience will know what these mean, but we've thrown around a lot of terms when we're talking about scripts and call to actions and, thumbnails and things like that. So tell me about, and I'm going to ask this in kind of a weird way, stage 2. And what I mean by stage 2 is, for me, stage 1 is just filming content. Just like, okay, here's a clip. Tell me about the stage 2 and really, I guess, adding the finishing touches to the sauce, the herbs and the spices and everything else. Tell me about that process and how important that is to really build longevity.
Yeah, absolutely. So one, to touch on stage 1 too, just to give some context, is I think it's really important that people post a decent amount of content or more quantity in the beginning, just to see what people are engaging with. And even if, say, most of your posts are getting 50 to like 100 likes, but then you have one post that gets like 300 or 400 likes, you can start to see like what people are engaging with. And then once you add those stage 2 final touches, now instead of getting 400 likes, maybe it gets 1,000 likes, 2,000 likes, because you're using something that people are already engaging with. So one, I think super important in the beginning, people post quantity, and you're really just using it as a testing stage to see what people are interested in. And then stage 2, once you're adding those finishing touches, I think most people should almost look at it as a science in a sense, where there's certain reasons that people are going to watch a video for an extended period of time. And all of those things ultimately affect the algorithm for all these different social media platforms. Obviously, they're changing it all the time. So there's no guarantee that a video is going to get great engagement or poor engagement. But there are definitely multiple concepts that you can use to kind of boost engagement. And as you're testing things or you see certain trends that you're doing work, you can start to double down on those things. So just to like name a few is obviously in the beginning of the video, you want a hook, like what is going to captivate them? And I think a lot of people nowadays think it is it's like 3 tips. Like these are 3 tips how to do, I feel like a lot of people just think it has to be verbal or like some sort of verbal hook to like get them to watch, which isn't necessarily wrong. But I do think that now there's so many people doing that where you can be more unique. Whereas I know there's like,
if I see 3 tips to be a millionaire, 3 tips to grow your business, I'm going to nope, scroll.
Yeah, exactly.
It's got to be so much more. I feel like it has to be more nuanced now in order to grab somebody's attention.
Absolutely. And it can be just visually too, where I know you have, this is a funny example, but the video, it's like, it's a larger lady who's like, she squeezes her legs together and like water squirts. So that's one example where, and not saying that should be everyone's social media strategy, but that's an example where that's something
the guy
visual.
That rolls off the gurney.
Yes. All those trends and it's using psychology, and like you see a lot of those videos blow up because it's something that like is captivating your attention, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a verbal hook, and it also can be subtle, where in the beginning of the video, and we use this for like our restaurant clients, for example, like instead of just like starting out with a montage of pretty shots, it's like maybe we have something like slow dripping. One example client, we just started working with like Hungry Howie's, which is like a pizza brand, and like
Hungry Howie's cheesy bread, dog. Where do you think I packed on that last 10 pounds? I love me some cheesy bread.
Yeah, like so a client like that, it's like, how can we make the garlic bread or the cheesy bread slowly start, like something that's going to captivate them, and it doesn't necessarily need to be. This is 3 reasons why.
I love me. No, I'm trying to be good, man. I love me some cheesy bread.
Yeah, but
yeah, absolutely. It's captivation at the end of the day. It's being different, being creative, captivating, and I think the hook is more important than ever now, and being a little bit more directed rather than general. And here are 3 tips to make more money in your business in 2024. It's like, nah,
yeah, and it's just
not doing it anymore.
100%. And it's how do you keep them curious throughout the video so they're going to watch it again. And I think, and one other quick note on this too is I think a lot of people also assume that a short video. Like most people say like, okay, a video should be quick because people don't have the attention span, which is true, I would say, for the most part. Obviously, attention spans are going lower, but at the same time, you have people that will watch a Mr. Beast video or different things that they're watching something for 2 hours long, but it's because that whole video is engaging. So if you are going to make a longer form video, and we'll call it like a minute, so using a 5 to 10 second video in comparison to like a minute long video, it's like, how are you keeping them engaged throughout that? Because yes, they're going to scroll once that video becomes boring, which if the video is longer, it's harder to keep someone engaged. But if it's done right, now they still are engaged. If they want to see to the end, now you're still going to get more exposure. So I think that's a lot of times people also go wrong where they're like, a video has to be only 10 seconds, 15 seconds, which isn't wrong. A lot of the times those can perform well, but if you are going to make a long form video, there's also ways to do it well.
There's so many times, like for example, in my business, there's a rule with personal injury protection. And I won't go down this pipeline because the audience is probably already trying to click off because it's so boring. I'm just kidding. So you'll see like a lot of these like attorney personal injury ads, and it'll be like, you need to treat within 14 days to avoid losing your benefits. Scroll, scroll, scroll. So I started being like, after an accident, you want to lose $10,000? Don't treat within 14 days. People are like, what is that?
Yeah.
What does that mean? $10,000. What do you mean I lose $10,000?
Yeah.
Like, so the hook is so important in the engagement and the information and stuff like that. You know, one of the big things is like getting uninsured or underinsured motors coverage. And it's like, get or get underinsured motors coverage. And most people are like, I can't even buy eggs and bacon right now. And you want me to buy insurance coverage? And it's just like, you know, there's so many different things, you know, that you could, you know, even with that, for example, like I tell people like, nobody's required to have bodily injury coverage in the state of Florida. You could be on your own. This is how you prevent that. It's like people are like, what do you mean? I thought they had insurance. Okay, let me watch this. There's just so many different ways to explain concepts, as you know, in a creative and hooking way, with still getting your point across and coming across as an expert, which is obviously the most important part.
Absolutely. And when you tell that final point as well, if it is a question like that makes people curious, it's like saying the end answer towards the end of the video as well. So now you're increasing watch time, because if you're telling, say, I know I see a lot of lawyer videos where it's like, what to do if like a cop pulls you over and you're driving drunk or something, and people are like, oh, like how should I respond? But
don't call me. No, I'm just kidding.
But if you
I don't do that.
Yeah.
But
if you give the response right in the beginning of the video, and then you keep blabbing on as you go, most people will scroll through it. But if you give that final tip towards the end of the video, people are waiting to hear the end. So it's like how you position the talking points in the video are also very important.
Do you think based on your experience, you can tell if people are using your script or not? Meaning, do you think based on your experience, you can tell if people are rambling on versus like they have a concise objective with the video?
I would say yes, most of the time. I think looking at people's content.
That's why I was asking. I've started looking at them like, that just seems kind of like,
yeah,
you know, all over the place.
Yeah,
they got there, but
100%. And I think there's also some sort of natural talent aspect where a lot of creators that have really good following and engagement, I think once you practice it so many times, you almost get used to it. So like if you know, like I think in the beginning for most content creators, it's like it needs to be semi-scripted, where also you want it to still feel natural and like your own personality. Because if it sounds fully scripted to the audience, it's probably not going to get good engagement. If you are following a lot of those good concepts to keep people engaged, I think it's very easy for me now to look at someone's content and be like, oh, they understand like the aspects of what is going to make a piece of content perform. But a lot of times maybe it's not scripted, but they're so used to knowing like what is
like
going
me,
to perform.
You know, they're just they're naturals, you know.
Yeah,
so I'm like the Tom Cruise of content creation over here. So
yeah.
I just got it. You were saying about influencers and you know, people just having it. So being around you guys more, probably in the last 6 months to a year, I've heard this term a lot more, but obviously I'm sure you've been used to it for a while. Micro influencers is being thrown around a lot more. And there's almost this niche kind of in these, first of all, I'll ask you, so what would you consider a micro influencer? Somebody with between 5 and 20,000 followers? Is that maybe a little more or less?
Yeah, I would say, like 5 to maybe like 30 to 50,000.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people have different opinions on it. I also think it heavily is dependent on the engagement they have, because you can have someone, and it's fun. It's kind of ironic too, because we've worked with a lot of micro influencers or a lot of people who may think they're influencers, but they don't get either great engagement, but maybe they're content creators. And I think a lot of businesses, also, especially I would say older business owners who don't understand social media as much, they might see someone with like 100,000 followers, but like you could have 90% of those followers that are fake or they're not getting or it could be bots where they're faking engagement.
Yeah, Instagram's scraping a lot of those. Yeah, so that's getting changed up a lot.
Yeah, which I think is definitely a good thing. But you could also have someone with 5,000 followers though that's getting like maybe 1,000 likes per post versus someone who has like 15,000 followers that's getting like 500 likes, which isn't necessarily bad. But we've had a lot of micro influencers like reach out to our clients or different things where they have 20K followers, but they're getting like 400, 200 likes. And they're asking for like, hey, can I get like a free week stay in your hotel? Or can I get like a gift card for free for the rest of my life of eating at your restaurant, whatever it is, exaggerating. But at the same time, a lot of businesses, I think, don't vet the influencers. A lot of micro influencers can be more like content creators. So they might create a great piece of content that a business can use for their business that definitely is valuable. But I also think there's a big difference with when those people also have good engagement. And I also think that micro influencers can be very underrated. Like you said, it is a more popularized thing nowadays. But those micro influencers also a lot of times have a very specific audience. So if you do have someone with say 20K followers, but they're getting like 1,000 to 5,000 likes, they're getting 20,000, 50,000 views on their videos, and it's to a very specific audience that aligns with whatever brand or person that they're working with or collabing with, that is insanely valuable. And a lot of times that person is also doing other things. If they are a micro influencer, they probably have either another job or maybe a side business or something. So I think a lot of times too, they
maybe
can be
a passion project.
Yeah, and they could be even undervalued. Whereas the person with 500,000 followers that's a full-time influencer, like they're going to charge you a lot of money as a business owner to work with them. So I think micro influencers are kind of like a great demographic for people who want to start getting exposure, even for say like a podcast host like yourself, someone that is a micro influencer who's willing to like collab with you or something, and you obviously bringing people on the podcast.
Are you calling me a micro influencer? That's so kind. I'm not on the level. Never mind. I'm not on the level yet.
You are. But I think also you collabing with other people that are micro influencers as well. It's like if you were to try to get Justin Bieber or someone, that's a very radical example, but a high level. He
might be busy right now.
He could be busy. You could try, maybe you would. But you could get those people on and they're not going to force you to pay money to be on their thing. It's like they enjoy the conversation. You probably have a lot in common with them versus higher level influencers. Like they're going to want something from it, either monetary or something. So I think it's something that a lot of people can utilize on social media and collab with like-minded people that can also be a less expensive route as well. That's going to get a lot of traction.
Let's take an example so we can kind of break this down the right way. You're looking for, you're a restaurant, you're a local restaurant in the Tampa Bay area, you're an Italian restaurant, whatever, we'll break it down like that, right? Why would you go and pay, insert celebrity name, $100,000 to promote your restaurant when you could have a local influencer that has, 90%, 80% engagement, on their posts, let's say, or whatever, they have 10,000 followers and they get 1,000 likes, so, whatever the proper algorithm is. With that thought process, you're either going after business revenue or you're going after vanity. So know what you're paying for. And that's the biggest warning I have for businesses and friends. And I've made content about this in the past when people spend money on, websites and marketing and all these different things. And influencer marketing is obviously a huge thing. And it's like, hey, you just, called, so-and-so celebrity to come out and, come stay at your hotel. Nobody cares. But you just had, Susie influencer come out and stay, and she's local and talks about doing a staycation. And all of a sudden you just got 50 reservations from that for paying her a fraction of the cost. So I think I'm glad that micro influencers are being highlighted and the value that they bring is being brought to the forefront.
Yeah, absolutely. And to hit on your example as well, is I think it's ultimately like who their audience is, because a following count and engagement, it obviously matters, and engagement is definitely more important, but at the same time, like who is engaging with that? Because if you have, say, an influencer in Tampa, and say, we'll give two semi-equivalent examples. So like you have one influencer, Patty, who say has 50,000 followers, but maybe she makes like finance content or like accounting content, versus you have Susie, your example, who also has 50K followers, same amount of engagement, but like she highlights her favorite places in Tampa and she's very well known in Tampa and like a restaurant wants to hire both of these people, the post might get similar engagement if they were to do a collab, but ultimately Susie's content and like her followers are following her because she's a trusted source in Tampa. And like if Susie's like, hey, I go to this restaurant every single Tuesday, it's my favorite spot for pizza or steak or whatever it is, people trust her. And they're like, if she's going there every week and she lives in a place in Tampa, now that is actually going to bring in the business, more business, more clients, whatever it may be. And I think a lot of businesses, or even people with personal brands that are doing collabs with different people aren't really being that conscious of the audience. And then also when they're making that piece of content, how can you frame the piece of content in a way that is ultimately going to drive more sales? So instead of having Susie just post like, oh, my pizza was great when I ate here, saying, oh, I go to this place every single Tuesday for pizza. Like now that's like a different style of communication where it's like, this person is going there every single day.
And I order this, and I get this, and I, et cetera. And they go through the story. They tell the story.
Absolutely.
I mean, with that, kind of, we can either, somewhat use those examples but moving forward with this, what are your thoughts on flex content? And flex content, I mean, is the Ferraris and the Lambos and the, watches and the houses versus genuine content. What are your thoughts? Is there a place for both? Which, I mean, I guess there clearly is, but yeah, I'll stop my rambling. Tell me what's up.
I definitely think there is a time and place for both. And going back to something that I think we hit on earlier is just who your audience is and what you're trying to ultimately go after. If your audience is someone who is, I think, primarily focused on money or like materialistic things, which I think there's nothing wrong with, but if you are going to do those things, and you're using flex type content or showing off the Lambo or different aspects of your life that a lot of people look up to and want to do, I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But then who is your audience? So like if you are selling, say, a course or something, or say if you're like a stock trader and you sell a stock trading course, a lot of those people they're after the monetary aspect of it. So in that case, I think it makes total sense. But if I'm trying to think of another example, but say if you're not selling a course or something that isn't your audience doesn't have as much of materialistic goals, you might still get good engagement, but then who is your audience going to be or turn into? I think another huge point that a lot of people don't think about is you can make content that I think is very engaging, and especially once people get good at making content and they realize what's performing well or engaging, they might realize like, hey, every single video I post with the Lambo is getting the most amount of engagement. So like, all right, I need to start posting my Lambo every day. But at the same time, if that audience isn't like who you are, I think as a person, or if you don't relate to them or your long-term goals don't align with the people that you are targeting, it doesn't make as much sense. And now you kind of pigeonhole yourself where it's like, okay, now my whole audience wants Lambo content, but like really I want to be a farmer and raise my kids on a farm in the middle of nowhere. And so I think a lot of people limit themselves to their audience, and not just with the flex type content or Lambos, but I think with a lot of things. And I think also in different stages of a career. And I've even thought about this for myself, for example, where obviously we have a podcast studio. I understand content decently well. But I think when I go to create a personal brand, I don't want it to be all about starting a content agency and a video production agency or studio, where I know right now I think I could get online and start making that type of content and probably have a lot of creators or videographers or people that want to start agencies follow me. Could probably release a course about it and be decently successful. But at the same time, it's like, I enjoy like the game of business. Like you, I like meeting cool people.
Mosey style. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, I don't necessarily want to be known as like the video content guy, where short term I could absolutely do that. And I think a lot of people fall into that, where there's nothing wrong with that.
I'm attorney Kevin for life. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
exactly.
Done. No, I'm just kidding. Somewhat done. Yeah. But everybody knows me as attorney Kevin. So if I decide to pivot, that would be a hard pivot, but I'm okay with that because that's what I'm trying to do anyway. That's what I'm trying to attract. And then obviously I love sharing those tidbits about my life and my passion for cars and watches and my family and the fun things we get to do and stuff like that.
Absolutely. So. And even with the podcast too, it's like, I know we talked about it before where you're very passionate as well about talking with entrepreneurs and people doing cool things in Tampa. And like, I love that. I'm kind of the same way where like, if I were to start a podcast, it would probably be something similar to where like, I enjoy meeting cool people. And that's something that aligns with like my values and things that I would want to do long term. Versus, I think a lot of people just sometimes can pigeonhole themselves, whether it's like the flex content or really anything. They're thinking about it more short term, where I think most people should look at it long term. Like if you do want to be a content creator, influencer, there's nothing wrong with that at all. And I don't think there's anything wrong with highlighting materialistic type content, but like, does that align with your values and what you want to do long term? And I think a lot of people just don't think about it. So I think it's just something to be conscious of.
I'll tell you and I've admitted starting the podcast was for selfish reasons because I wanted to meet business owners, influencers, people in Tampa that were moving and grooving, and pick their brains for an hour and get some amazing feedback. And, like one of the biggest things, I put out the clip and I'll say it again because I'm putting it out in the universe. So I interviewed Eric Bosworth and his video will be out a couple weeks before this one. And he said, he's like, and I think it was like 3 or 4 years, he said, I'm going to have a $1 billion insurance agency. And I'm like, I'm going to have a $1 billion law firm, dog. And I was like, did I just say that? I'm like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to, but it's like, I never thought in those terms. I mean, I knew I would be very successful and I'd do a lot of things, but I'm like, that's the goal, the B Club and then creating content, doing it the right way and learning from you guys and stuff. I mean, I will 100% say that Not an Accident podcast was created for selfish reasons, but I do it for you people. Okay. I do it for you, doggone it. Tell us about some simple hacks, maybe cost-efficient hacks that people can do to improve their content, that can upgrade their content. What would you suggest?
Yeah, so I think a few different aspects. One, I think micro-influencers and collabing with people is like a very simple, straightforward thing where if you're currently making content, collab with people that are doing similar things that? So one, I think having a specific goal in mind and also being able to provide value to the other person. I think a podcast is a great example of that, where you're having a long form conversation. You can learn a lot about someone. And
so connecting over creating value. Hey, this is what I can do for you.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of times also looking at it as a long-term thing, obviously not so much with podcasts, but say if you're a foodie influencer, like if you're a chef, maybe collabing with other chefs that have they're posting similar type of content. I know all the time I see like the ASMR style videos where it's just someone shooting on an iPhone. It doesn't need to be so highly produced, but it will be like ASMR style where they're like pounding the chicken and then slicing it really quickly. But I see so many creators that are doing that. But if you're one of those people and you have 1,000 followers and you're just getting started, start to collab or find partnerships with people that are making similar content, that have similar values, content pillars, all those different aspects. And that will get you exposure so much faster if you can do collab posts. So I think that's one like quick hack in a sense that you can do. Next thing I think is just like learning as much about what makes engaging content, which is like less tangible, but just really studying like what are good hooks. And like to give you one example for our clients on the Modern Media Group side of things, we write down for each of our clients like 100 viral videos that are within someone's niche before we go and create a production document for that client. So if it's say a barbecue restaurant, we will find 100 barbecue videos that have blown up. And now we're basing all our ideas off of that and how we can align those or now make unique ideas based off of what is already performing well for that client. Which a lot of people...
You got to study content in your niche.
Absolutely. And the cool thing is like there's a portfolio. If you look up a certain keyword on Instagram, like if you look up ribs, say your barbecue restaurant, and you can be like phenomenal ribs, like a bunch of viral videos of ribs will pop up, and it's like, how are they framing those videos? And now what can I take from those videos that are going to perform well? Yeah, I know, same. But I think, that's one aspect is like actually doing the research.
So food seems to perform well. If there's anything that we've learned from this podcast, this episode, Cabry, food performs well.
Maybe I'm just hungry today.
Yeah,
it could be that
could be the move too. But so in all seriousness though, not only studying, but finding it in your niche and doing the research it takes, because if you're just, and again, it's like I understand putting out content is consistent. Putting out content consistently is important. But if you're not putting out the right content, you're just kind of, paddling, going upstream without a paddle rather.
Absolutely. And I think also just testing different things. So if you're posting, I know a lot of people recommend like just post for a year straight. And it doesn't matter what you post, just post it. I think
so funny.
Yeah. And it's like,
post what?
Yeah, exactly.
What do I post?
Exactly. And if you're not changing anything throughout, don't look back, do it for a year. Like if this is something you want to do, if you want to start a podcast, and that goes for almost anything. Like if you want to start a business, you need to do things and test things, but don't blindly say, okay, I haven't gotten a client in the last 6 months. So like, I'm just going to keep going as I've been going. It's like, no, you have to change whatever strategy that you're doing or test different aspects. And then once something starts to perform, double down on that, but then keep testing. Once something works, maybe you dedicate 20% of the content that you post to new things that you want to test.
And I want to build upon that too. So one of the things, and it's dangerous with Facebook, especially, not as much with like Instagram and TikTok, but when you go through and you're posting content, look at who's liking your content. And it's like, if it's, call it, say you get 100 likes and, 30, call it 70% of them are people that already follow you, and 50% of that 70%, so 35 of them basically are close friends, probably didn't hit well.
Yeah.
Those people are liking your content to like your content because they're your friends and family. So really look at the people that are not following you, and really look at the people that maybe you don't normally engage with. And I think that's one of the further indicators, doing the research that really shows if that content's performing well or not.
Absolutely. And I think aligning that content or the ideas you're coming up with.
Okay.
Yeah, you do.
Things, yeah.
Absolutely. But I think also coming up with those content ideas that are with that audience that you do want to go after, where I've seen it a lot with other agencies as well, looking at their content, or a lot of content that agencies post that get a ton of engagement. And then I'll go through the comments or different things, and all of it, it's all other agencies liking and engaging with other agencies. So they'll make relatable agency content, but now they just get whatever tips and tricks they have, or whatever the video was about. It's like 90% of the engagement was all from other agencies. So like potentially competitors rather than business owners. So it's like,
correct.
If you're an agency, make your content for business owners rather than for other agencies. But a lot of people fall into the trap of what they know. So like now they know what the agency business model looks like. So they're giving tips and tricks for agencies or different things. And I think not just in that space, but a lot of people get kind of stuck in that. So even if something's getting good engagement, to your point, it's like, who are the people engaging with?
It would be me, like,
really
and I
important.
love other lawyers, and plenty of friends are, well, I shouldn't say that. I like most of you. That would be like me making lawyer for lawyer content. Like,
yeah.
I'm not trying to if you want to call me, I can help you and stuff like that. But I'm not trying to, do too much. I mean, I'm trying to, meet people and attract clients and people with similar interests and stuff like that. And it's like kind of the same thing. And it's like, if I make a lawyer joke and have 90% of them are my lawyer buddies, it's like, how well did that really perform? So what is next for the Modern Media Group and Modern MMG Studios? What's the next big thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So couple different things. One more short-term thing is we just launched a new service.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. So it's influencer marketing, to sum it up in a sense. So like I was saying before, the only services we've really offered over the last couple of years have been content creation, so short form video and photos, social media management organically, we don't run any ads. And then last is video production. But as a part of social media management, we're working with influencers and things all the time. And then also on the content creation side of things, we need to either hire models and or influencers to grow accounts in different aspects. But we haven't really had it built out as a separate service. And this is on Modern Media Group side of things. What we're doing, we're having kind of two aspects of it. So one is a network called the MMG Collective, and it's pretty much something that people can apply to. So one, it's for models. So if you're a model looking to like build your portfolio and you want to be a part of some shoots, you can sign up and get some benefits out of it. So usually it's like smaller compensation, or maybe you get a gift card to a restaurant or different things, and you can sign up for it. So that's a modeling aspect. And then if you are approved as an influencer, and it's something where we're kind of like hand vetting each person and their engagement and making sure it aligns with our clients. If you're approved as that, we're doing like tailored influencer campaigns. On the MMG Collective side of thing, it's something people can sign up for. So, okay, we're doing a big campaign with Naked Farmer for their fall menu. Here are the deliverables based off of your engagement and like what tier of influencer you are. You will be compensated this much. So one, it's a really good way for influencers to get compensated, then also get our clients more traction and engagement short term and hopefully long term as well. And then, so that's MMG Collective, which is like the network. And then the other aspect of it is like tailored influencer campaigns, which is something that is more of a long-term play for us. So doing like bigger brand partnerships with large scale influencers with brands that have bigger budgets. So like one example is one of our content managers, Amanda. She's also like a creator. She has a good following on TikTok and different things, but like she's worked with a few different influencer agencies, but there's a ton of influencer agencies out there that reach out to a ton of different influencers for specific campaigns. So like she did one with Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh, wow. Sweet.
Yeah. And
That's awesome.
Yeah. And she was like compensated pretty well, but all of it was through the agency. But big brands all the time are
all the donuts you can eat.
Yeah, yeah. But big brands all the time are doing large campaigns with multiple creators and working with a lot of different influencer marketing agencies versus with social media management or content creation. A lot of times they either have it built out in-house or if an agency is managing your social media account, usually it's a long-term partnership and they're doing everything. But with influencers, we found it very interesting because most of the time they're short-term campaigns, but they're working with a lot of different influencer agencies because each influencer agency has different connections or different leverage with certain influencers. So that's definitely one of our newer plays that we really want to start focusing on. That one is going to get our clients way more engagement and traction. And then also from a business perspective, allows us to target a wider range of people. Also hitting on like the scalability aspect as we've grown, we've tried to make the business as scalable as possible. But as you know, with a service business, it's like we can only do so many shoots at one time. There's only so many days in the week. But with influencer campaigns, the influencer is making the content. So
yeah, they can do it wherever.
Yep. So if we have an influencer that's in California or Arkansas or whatever it is, we can have them make the content, which obviously saves us a lot of time, and we're doing the back end strategy and things like that. But it's ultimately definitely our next like big play from a business standpoint, and we're kind of slow launch stages right now, but we're excited about it.
Well, that's amazing. I can't thank you guys enough for what you do for me and allowing me to use this amazing studio. If you guys want to contact Cabry or the Modern Media Group, I'm going to put all of their content information, or their details rather, in the description. Again, producer Victoria would yell at me if I didn't tell you to like and subscribe and comment. I'm going to throw this in this time. Comment your favorite part of the episode. And as we always end every episode, it's clearly no accident, guys, that Cabry is as successful as he is. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Cabry.
I appreciate you coming on, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Be good.
Awesome.